And so the benefit of supporting Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin versus your neighborhood pantry. I mean, we all play for the same team, but the dollar here, we are able to stretch it that much further and provide assistance all over the state, and really spread out that good. But I feel like, and I didn't know the difference before I started either, but I think that's a big, there's so many layers to this field and the need, and there's so many different causes of systemic hunger. There's really a lot to get into. So I think a lot of people start with that really great intention of, I want to get involved. And then our job is to kind of help peel back the layers and say, like, well, what's the best fit for you? Right. Where do your passions really lie?
Welcome to Over a Pint, where we focus on the fast-paced, never-changing world of marketing, told through the eyes of folks that have been there. Real-world experience, that's what we have on this show, and that does include our guests. So grab a pint of your favorite local brewski or whatever your favorite choice of liquid may be, and join us for the show. As always, I am joined by my sidekick, my better half, Mr. Pat McGovern. He is the new biz director at Acedia, an award-winning digital shop here in Milwaukee. Say hello, Pat.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being on the podcast, guys.
And I'm Kurt Lingle, vice president at Celtic, a full-service award-winning ad agency, proudly headquartered in Milwaukee's historic Third Ward neighborhood. So Pat, one of the things I love about doing the Over a Pint podcast is that we get to meet some really, really cool people, talented people that are doing some phenomenal things in the corporate world as well as in our community. And today, that's what we have. We've got a team of folks from Feeding America that are here with us today. We've got Scott Marshall, vice president, development and communications. We've got Jessecca Miller, events manager, Cornelius Holt, philanthropic manager. So I was looking at their website, and I think Feeding America says it best, and I'm gonna quote. This is their words, not mine. We believe that access to nutritious food is a right for all. In a state rich in farmland, it's hard to imagine that hunger lives in Wisconsin. Yet 1 in 8 people and 1 in 5 children, that's crazy, do not know where their next meal is coming from. Hunger does not discriminate. It knows no age, race, or sex. People facing hunger live in our cities, in our suburbs, in our rural areas. Many have homes, jobs, and families. They are your neighbors. Hunger is difficult to recognize. And today we want to accomplish 2 things with our guests. One is obviously we want to shine a positive spotlight on what it is they do, and they're going to tell us about the great work they're doing in our community and across the state. The other thing we want to talk about is we are a marketing podcast. And make no mistake, nonprofits are brands, and they need to build their brand. They need to market their brand. They need to be cognizant about the type of messaging they're putting out there to their audiences, whether it's just to build awareness or ultimately get folks to do something that they want them to do, to act. So we're going to jump into that. So with that said, Scott, Jessecca, Cornelius, welcome to Over a Pint. It's great to have you on.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So it is called Over a Pint. There's a reason we call it Over a Pint. We like to go around the horn, and we like to share with our listeners what we are all enjoying today. So let's start with our guests. Scott, Jessecca, Cornelius, what are you enjoying today?
Well, I've got Kid Kolsch from New Glarus Brewing, locally brewed, locally enjoyed beverage here on my end.
Prost celebrating with an Oktoberfest from Lakefront.
Right on.
And I'm having Lakefront Pumpkin. So we're trying to stay local, much like we do in the pantries and the people that we support. So
excellent. Hey, Pat, I know you've got something. What do you got going today?
I've got the, we had Allie Halloran on the show yesterday from Milwaukee Pretzel. And this is a collab between Good City Brewing and Milwaukee Pretzel Company. It's called their Beer Garden Pretzel Ale. Guys, this is
Shine it over this way, Pat. Let's see the can. Let me see the can.
Wait, there you go. Right there. Right there. Guys, this is delicious. So I'm enjoying that.
Yeah,
right
we
now.
had, yeah, it's, we
Cheers,
had, we
everybody.
had, we had Milwaukee Pretzel. We interviewed them yesterday. Pat, I don't have any of those beers left because I drank them all. So I'll have to fix that. Hey, you know what? I am having it is afternoon when we're taping this. I'm going with a great Wisconsin beer brand, Central Waters. I've got their coffee stout, best of both worlds, a little brewski, a little coffee taste in there. Good stuff. Cheers, everyone. Great to have you on the show.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, let's kick this off. Or is Pat, how did you say that yesterday? Like, let's light this. What did you say? I was like, wow, I should have
Burn this place down.
burned light this firecracker. I don't remember what he said. But we're going to kick this off. And I guess, why don't we start real briefly from 100,000 feet? Maybe one of you can just kind of share with us, give us a top line of what Feeding America is, what it's all about, what the brand stands for. Just lay it on us.
Well, I can jump in on that, and this will be part of, I think, when we get in a little bit of the nuts and bolts, is Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin is the largest food bank in the state of Wisconsin. We serve 35 counties on the eastern half of the state, everywhere from Kenosha through Milwaukee, Manitowoc, Sheboygan, Door County, the Fox Valley, and all the way through up north central Wisconsin. We're a part of the Feeding America network, and as we'll discuss later on, some of our branding is specific to differentiating us as a local food bank versus a national entity. We have two local locations. Our brick and mortar in Milwaukee here on 17th and Fond du Lac Avenue, which is where we are right now. We were founded here in 1982 by the Rotary Club of Milwaukee. Our first donation was 600 pounds of apples from a local grower. But as we grew, we built in 2015 brick and mortar in the Fox Valley, which is our newer and more beautiful but slightly smaller location that helps us serve, central and northern Wisconsin as well.
Well, that's pretty cool. I had a chance to attend an event, obviously, and I should say this too, full disclosure. Cornelius and I are friends, humble little moment. So it's like, I know Cornelius, old friend. So that's kind of how I got kind of introduced. I was aware of the brand, but he introduced me a little bit more and more to what you guys were all about. I attended the event last week with Bobby Portis. You guys are doing some really cool stuff. I'm always fascinated with, so we've got all three of you here, and in the world of marketing and branding, everyone has a story, just like companies have a story. We all have stories, and I find that fascinating just to hear from our guests where they've been and how they came to where they are now. If we could briefly, maybe just one by one, could each of you just kind of take a minute, 2 minutes tops, tell us your story and how you got to the chair you're sitting in right now?
I'll start. I actually worked in TV for 8 years, and I loved it. I was behind the scenes, very technical person, got really highly involved in broadcast engineering, but I really wasn't fulfilling. I felt like I'm doing a lot and I don't see it making a difference. So I had the opportunity to join the organization last December. So I'm still a freshman food banker, but I've been so fascinated by the layers of food insecurity and how deeply it does affect people all over our state, all over our country, really. But it really has no face. And so that's the biggest thing. I love my role as the events manager. I get to plan all these special projects and productions, but no breaking news hours. We love that. But it's just such a great opportunity. It takes the place, our events look like fundraisers, or they look like community informational events, or they look like a hybrid of the two. And so it's such a wonderful opportunity to get to meet so many great people on our team and in our community and see the work that so many people are doing on the ground to bring systemic change.
That's cool. Jessecca, I had a chance to meet you. I don't know if you remember, you and I met at the ice cream or root beer float at Bayshore. Was in partnership with who was all involved? Culver's and Sprecher. And Yeah, it was kind of cool. So anyway, that's where we
Welcome to
met.
Glendale
Cool.
and
Bayshore.
Bayshore. There was a
Yeah.
lot of great partners that came to the table to make that happen. And Sprecher ended up making a donation for every float that
Very
we
cool.
served. So
Yeah.
really cool community event and brought some brand awareness for all stakeholders. And I apologize. You did not get to see me at my best that day. We were in the throes of root beer float.
I think it was pretty
You were
good.
killing it.
Don't count yourself short. I think that was pretty cool. That was a cool event, well attended. So thanks for sharing your story. Who's next?
Cornelius is
I'll go and
Everyone
I'll
knows
try and
Cornelius.
keep it to
Mm.
2 minutes. So
Yeah.
I am, my career has taken me, through sales and marketing, and on quite the journey and working with you in the past, Kurt, and you as well as Pat. I think I really just, I've worked with a lot of great, cohorts and leaders. Both of you are one of them. Scott, I've known for a number of years in a different life and a different time. We're both in different marketing worlds and media. And I finally got to a place where I feel like I can make some change. And not that I haven't done that before, but I think I've heard you say this before. I think I finally found my why. So I enjoy working with a team like we have here that's very grassroots and hands-on. I've been fortunate enough to work with big brands, big companies, and I think taking the skill set that I've been able to develop in the network and bringing it into an organization where I can help actually make change and see some of the grassroots efforts and people, making change in the community, right, is really my fulfilling thing. So I'm the philanthropy manager here. I'm fortunate enough to work with Jess, who's our events manager, and led by Scott, who's our VP of development and communications. And we've really are building a team here that's really changing things. So I'm able to use my skill set in conjunction with Jess and with Scott's leadership to, try and end hunger. We're not going to end it in one day. We know that, but can we move someone forward into a better position so they're not struggling as much? And that's how and why I'm here.
Cornelius is an awesome hype man. Sometimes I feel like he's everybody's agent. That's awesome. Yeah.
Hey, quick question before we can keep rolling. There you go. I see all three of you now. We kind of lost for
Yeah.
1 second.
Sorry.
We forgot to have our drinks. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, now we see all three of you. From 100,000 feet, let's focus on the nonprofit industry real briefly. What's been going on? What are you seeing? What trends? How have things impacted your business, this industry? I mean, the last couple of years have been crazy. I mean, just crazy with COVID and just, I'm kind of curious. Like, just tell us what your take is on what's been going on in the nonprofit industry.
I'll jump in on this one. A lot of the same things that are happening in a for-profit industry are affecting the nonprofit industry. A lot of the small nonprofits, COVID really affected them in a way where they may have not been able to keep their doors open. During COVID, a lot of focus in that time frame, which in the nonprofit world you'd think of as kind of honestly a disaster relief situation, where basic needs became at the forefront, and we had a lot of need come up, but we also were very blessed to have a lot of support. A lot of the areas that might have been, some of the categories of nonprofits that may have been something that enhances your life, but isn't necessarily the basic needs, like say the arts or university advancement. I know I have a lot of colleagues who worked in that space, and they had some real struggles as a lot of donors moved towards thinking about the day-to-day basic needs that a place like Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin would handle. So what we're seeing in the nonprofit world is a lot of the smaller nonprofits having a hard time, a lot of the non-basic needs nonprofits having to make some tough decisions. I'll say out there as far as hiring, there are some areas that have been a little bit more difficult, and specifically fundraisers. So we've had to think outside of the box with bringing in folks who've never fundraised before, but are great connectors and networkers like Cornelius. And it's been for the better, because you do have that outside of the box thinking instead of kind of the very rote style of fundraising. And so it's opened ourselves up to a lot of opportunities. So you take what is available to you and then you adapt, which is really kind of what nonprofits have to do. Other than that, I'll pitch it over to you guys, because I know there have been a lot of other ways we've been affected.
Yeah, well said. The one thing that stands out to me is collaboration. I think there's been a really unique opportunity to partner with other organizations that I say fight the same fight as we did. So we've had the opportunity to work with folks in the housing realm and folks in the healthcare realm. And I think maybe it's a little bit of a mindset of the past to think that we're competing for the same dollars when now we can look at it and say we're fighting the same fight. We can support each other. And we can appeal, when we're talking to donors, we can say like, this is how your dollar is stretching further is because we are working together. And so some of those wraparound services still providing basic needs, but ultimately that's better serving for the client in the end. And that's what's the most important. So for me, it's been really inspiring that piece of change is whether it was through force or whether it was just a natural progression. But I think there's better collaboration across the field.
Definitely.
Yeah, I like good explanation. I like how you said, I like how you stated it when I asked the question. You're like, you know what? One of the first things that came out of your mouth was, you know what? The same challenges that a for-profit's going to have, and that gets back to like in the setup. It's like, nonprofit is just a word. It's like it is. You are a brand, just like any other brand that's out there. Like whether it's a Sprecher or whether it's whomever, you are a brand. And you're building the brand and you have audiences that you're trying to connect with. I want to drill down and I want to talk about your audiences a little bit. And obviously there's a number of stakeholders that are involved, and let's maybe tap into that a little bit. You've got the beneficiaries, you've got, volunteers, you've got donors, you got the community, brand partnerships. I know that was something we just talked about, talk about that relationship and how from a marketing perspective or just how you're trying to engage them, I guess is the best way to say it. Maybe we can start there.
You threw out the word relationship, so I think we should start with Cornelius on that.
Well, I am a freshman too to this fundraising side, but I appreciate being brought onto this team, trying to use my skill set and network to create those opportunities for relationships. So Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin is part of a national brand. We've got some brand equity. We're not the biggest fish in the sea, but we're a big boy. When I say I work for Feeding America East, or I represent Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, people are willing to have some conversation. At least I can get that conversation going and start talking about programming and what we're doing, like trying to feed kids in the summer, or we just had an informational a lunch and learn today on our Farm Link program, so we all know what we're talking about. My goal is our goal is to start those conversations, be able to talk to people. I think we benefit from that quite a bit in creating that relationship. There are a lot of great nonprofits that do great work, but not everyone's heard of them. So my job is made easier a little bit by going out and cheerleading the brand, so to speak, and saying, hey, how do you want to be engaged? Is it money, right? Obviously, that's what I'm trying to do. Is it through donation? Absolutely. But we need volunteers. We need drivers. We need people just to champion us. Kurt, you've done a great job since we've been talking the last 2 or 3 months and reposting everything that I post. That speaks volumes to, one, you being a good friend, but what you think of what this is doing, that helps. So I don't know, that's my kind of quick, long-winded take on creating relationships, I guess.
You mentioned a couple of different stakeholders that, there are different ways that we interact with them, but at the end of the day, it's relationships, trust, communication, and follow through. Just like it is, again, with the for-profit. We work with the end users or the clients or the folks that we're making sure that we're getting enough food to them through our pantries. And so we have a network partnership team who works directly with the pantry, similar to how you would think of a portfolio. Where they have pantries where their job is to build the relationship. They're the person where they say, I have a question. I've got my guy, Jesse. I'm going to call Jesse and he's going to solve it. Or I'm going to ask, Brooklyn if she knows the answer to this question, or how can I get this extra something? And then we deliver. Do they need extra this? Do they need access to, more infrastructure like racking or, hand trucks that they could use? Because if we don't have that good relationship and that good back and forth, we don't know what they need on the front lines. They don't know what we can provide. They might assume. And so that relationship being strong and trust being strong is really important. The trust with donors is incredibly important. In different ways, the donor is making an investment in the mission, because what they get back out of it is the good that we do. And so if it's a corporate sponsor, we have to develop, we have to make sure that we show the impact, but we also have to provide ROI. If we have a corporate sponsor, we develop a proof of performance, and after the fact, we let them know that we did exactly what we said we were going to do. If it's a foundation, we promise a certain amount of impact, people served, number of, meals, number of pounds. And we do a recap and we let them know that what they did made a difference and that we did what we say we were going to do. Volunteers, we make sure that they understand the impact they're making, and we make sure they have a great time. We play music,
Right.
we keep it light. And so really, it's a relationship where you just make sure every time someone has an experience with us, they make it positive, and that they know that what they did made an impact, and that they know that we deliver, and hopefully then they come back.
I want to circle back real quick because when you're making introductions, I don't know if we fully got Scott's background, but I'd like him to give you a quick minute of where he came from, because it speaks to what we're building here, and what part of the reason I came here to work on this team is because of the way he thinks and forward thinking. Like, it's about creating relationships and doing what you say you're going to do. And if you can do more, you do it because you can, not for no other reason than that. You want to help people, and that will come back to you tenfold. And I think he embodies this quite a bit, but I think his background has led him to this. So you mind?
Hype man.
Yeah,
right?
Scott, take the mic.
I'll be quick, but I grew up on the South Side, and my mom on and off was the only one who raised myself and my brother, and we were on and off food insecure. Free school lunches, going to pantries to pick up food, which for my brother and I, we honestly were thrilled about, because that was when we got the good food. Because otherwise it was a lot of chicken drumsticks, canned green beans, and white rice, and that gets real old real fast when you're a kid and you don't understand why that's what you're eating so often. So we were excited when we got like cheese, or chocolate milk. And so one of the things that my mom did that I always appreciate, that I always keep in mind, is that my brother and I didn't realize until our early 20s we were food insecure, because my mom used the benefits that were available to her to make sure that we could be kids and we didn't have to think about food and we weren't hungry. So when I talk about hunger, I also try to say like that I don't think a lot of people are actually going hungry because of the work that we're doing. But if we were to go away or fail, then they would.
Yeah.
So we are a safety net that is keeping people like my mom, afloat. And so I always think about that as, when I come into work and why I love my job. But as far as professionally, I like our friends here started in media. So I worked for 11 years in radio locally here in Milwaukee, mostly in marketing and promotions, although the occasional weekend overnight DJing. And then when I left radio, I moved into nonprofit fundraising. So did that for 4 or 5 years before I ended up here. And now I'm 6 years here at Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, leading development, communications, and volunteerism.
That's awesome. All of you guys have got amazing voices. I can see you're just made for radio. Guys, here's what I want to know is that's such a cool background in the stories that you have. What was the surprise to you? Like, there's a lot of similarities between the for-profit and non-for-profit, but any surprises that when you got to where you're at, it's like both either good or bad. It's like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be this way. I like that, or holy cow, that's really different. Okay, I'm going to have to adjust. No, it's just different.
That's a good question.
I'll go. Coming from marketing, corporates, partnerships, and sales, going to work at an ad agency, and now finally at a nonprofit. In my mind, Kurt, you probably know this, 5-6 years ago, we talked about this, and you and I talked about this 3-4 years ago. I knew there was an easy transition of my skill set. But it's the same conversations. I think it goes back to creating opportunities for relationships and doing what you say you're going to do. In my short time here, I've had some conversations where hopefully we're starting to change the narrative and the way people think about as far as supporting us or working with us, and how things were handled in the past and how we're trying to handle them now. That's no different than, the customer seller relationship, right? Or any customers that you deal with. You have to come through with what you're talking about. And I wasn't sure if I was right in my thinking in that transition, even when Scott brought me on. But now I'm seeing it's really the same. You treat people how you want to be treated. And for the most part, you'll get a good turnout in that. That's kind of my take. I was surprised that it was like, I had this belief, like, am I right? Like the first month, Scott will tell you, I'm like, it's not happening fast enough. And I'm still struggling with that because I'm a go guy. Sure. There's a long game involved, but I was like, did I make the right decision? I have no doubt that I have made the right decision.
Good
It's
answer.
just the world, right? That's how you keep your job.
That better be the answer.
But it's the world of business, right? We're a brand and we are in a business. We're in a business of trying to change people's lives. So how do we do that? We need support. We need volunteers. I have to go out and make those connections and work on initiatives and support our plans and programming that Jessecca's now running, that Scott's tasked us what to do. That's no different than I'm in business development at an ad agency, or if I'm selling cars, right? It's the same dynamic, people working with people. And so I think I was a little surprised that it's going the way I thought or had hoped. And people are receptive, right? I've had a few careers. I've been in a few places. I've worked at big houses and small houses, and people are accepting, and everyone's like, that's where you should be. So that's my 2 cents.
Hey, go ahead, Jessica.
I was just going to say, I think for me, what stands out and what is continuing to be a process of understanding is the urgency. In that, like, I come from a world where deadlines, breaking news, we're always on. Right. But in this world, in food insecurity, if we don't get our job, if we don't meet our quota, if we don't sort these orders, if we don't get our trucks out on time, it's a matter of food. It's not a matter of like, oh, okay, this story didn't make slot, we'll push it till 10 or we'll push it to the morning, or, this assignment, whatever. We're talking about food. And that's, it kind of is a humbling point in that, when our whole team, every department in the organization understands that is the priority. And so if that means like, okay, I'm going to reschedule my meeting because this order needs to get out, or like, hey, so-and-so needs an extra truck driver. Not that I could drive a CDL, but like, we pitch in. Yeah. I can't. Don't be promoting that. But no, just that urgency and that shared priority is really good to see.
Yeah, one of the things that I did not expect when I moved from media into nonprofits was how much the skills do translate. And one of the reasons why, like, it wasn't necessarily by design consciously, but we have quite a few ex-media survivors on our team. But there's a lot about being constantly creative, constantly having to adapt, working odd hours, working crazy hours sometimes, and being able to turn on a dime and problem solve. That is something that's part and parcel of working in media. That is very similar to working in a nonprofit. And so it's actually allowed us to be extremely flexible and nimble. That we have a lot of folks that are not only used to it, but actually think that it's normal.
That's the norm, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's like something for a therapist to decide for all of us. But
that's our tip to your other brands and folks that are listening. It's just hire ex-media people that get stuff done.
They really do. They really do.
They do move fast.
One of the things also, that's one of the positives. One of the things that I didn't realize would happen is nonprofit staff are so focused on mission and doing, getting the job done, that when I came from media, I was surprised that people weren't as up on pop culture as I was. And I was like, oh, I made a Simpsons reference and nobody got it because they're busy helping people instead of us like radio folks trying to one up each other with like impressions, so it's a lot more mission focused, but I'm like, oh, you don't know who this actress is? And it's like, oh, because I care about real things.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a change. But now that we have all these media folks, we have the best of all worlds about knowing what's on trend and we're getting stuff done.
Hey, that's very, yeah, absolutely. Listening to all three of you, obviously, it's like, and Pat, you probably would agree. It's like, obviously there's a passion. There's that why. Cornelius, you said that earlier. It's like, I found my why. We interview a lot of people, and usually the common denominator with a lot of our guests, and maybe it's just because we book good people or we find the right people, but there is that why. They're really they're excited. And, I used to work at another agency, and we used to call it the brand belief system. It was all about, we were trying to educate our customers our clients, that the goal isn't to find a user. You don't need to find a brand user. There's a lot of users out there, and we use brands for different reasons. We want to find belief, because when you have belief, then all of a sudden those other things like price and maybe difficulties to find, it just goes away. That's the key to everything. And I'm sensing that belief, and you're wearing it. And obviously, if there's a belief with you, that's key. Because if you don't believe and you're not passionate about what you're doing, how the hell am I going to get passionate about that too? And I think this is a good point to transition to the marketing. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of choices out there. And I know that everyone has a role, and there's a lot of good, I was kidding with Pat before you jumped on. I said, it's interesting, within the half an hour before we had this interview, I got hit up by 2 nonprofit organizations, very good organizations. It's competitive out there. So let's talk about the marketing from a perspective. 2 things. One is, how are you marketing? Let's start there. Like, what channels are you using? And the other thing is, what's the message? Because I see what's going on behind you, and it's nice. And I think that's important. Because if you're approaching XYZ company and you're trying to get them on as a brand partner for money or whatever, there's got to be, a level of professionalism. And I like what you said, Scott. You kind of answered one of my questions that I won't ask him, but you're like, if there's ROI in the back end, if someone comes on board, we're going to spell it out what you get. Obviously we want you to do this because it's a good thing to do, but companies want to get something out of it as well. So let's talk marketing. How are you marketing? What is your strategy? What channels are you using, and what type of messaging are you kind of going after?
You mind if I
Please
jump in on this? So, the dream is to become, at least locally, the Kleenex of basic needs as far as organizations, where you think of Kleenex, but it's actually tissue paper. But Kleenex is a brand that people will automatically go to. And so if someone says, I want to help feed people, you would just say, oh, well, you go to Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. You don't even think about it. It just becomes the natural thing for people to go to, based on constant awareness, positive brand identity, and obviously a good experience when people interact with us. So that is like the big time goal. But you're right, it's incredibly competitive, whether it's, other food banks or large pantries that are saying, oh, directly fund us, which we do support them and help them with, and they deserve to be fundraising for themselves. But, sometimes we have better buying power and so on and so forth. Similar other basic needs organizations, or even national organizations that might do something similar, like feed people, but they're not local like we are. So that's kind of like the goal, is to be locally the go-to without people even having to think about it. And for that reason, we try to make sure that we're constantly around. And so we do mix and match some of the ways that we do advertise ourselves. And we try to be equitable with, we'll work with one TV station for this campaign and then a different TV station for another campaign. We'll mix it up with different radio stations and different demos. And so we do use television, we use radio, we do digital ad placement. Obviously, we have our social media channels across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and now we're on TikTok. We're growing TikTok, and then LinkedIn for different demo there. We do some outdoor and a little bit of print. So we really do mix it up, because there are different demos. And because, when people say, what is your demo of a donor? I mean, it really isn't as specific as when you think about, say, a radio station that has a very specific demo. To assume that a donor can't be, 18 years old, or that all donors have to be, Gen X or baby boomers, you're missing entire groups of folks. So we do mix and match. The opportunity and challenge we have as well is that we cross a lot of markets. We're here in the Milwaukee market, but we also are in the Fox Valley DMA. We're in Wausau, we're in Fond du Lac, and we have, we only have so much marketing dollars, because 97% of the money that comes in here goes right into programs and food. And so we have an advertising budget, but it is fairly limited. And so we have to be very thoughtful about that, and develop a lot of partnerships that'll help with some quid pro quo media that they'll do for us for free. So A lot of the way that we do it though is we do tie it into a campaign, which gets to your messaging question, so that there is a focus point and an action that we're asking people to take. So, for example, we just came out of our summer hunger campaign called Healthy Kids, Healthy Summer. We did work with a television partner. We bought some digital outdoor. We bought some radio. And then we did social media advertising. We had a brand ambassador, which we'll get into that, I think, later on in the conversation. And we had sponsors with an expected ROI. And the message was that during summer, kids are experiencing a higher level of hunger because they're not in school and they're not getting school meals. And so you can either get help by going to this website and understand where you can get help, or you can help support this program that feeds kids during the summer. And so there's a focal point, there's an action item, there's information for people who need help, and some great creative that we developed with the brand ambassador to help drive people and awareness to it. And then because in a lot of cases, we're asking people for a lot of the same thing, help feed people. Sometimes it's seniors, sometimes it's veterans, sometimes it's children, sometimes it's families. So a lot of times the ask is similar, but you kind of mix and match who the partner is.
Sure.
You mix and match where the focal point is in the creative, the name of it, and then you launch it back out. And we do a lot of events that way, like Combat Hunger, that have a similar, where we change the focus. And so it's kind of another coat of paint in order to not seem like it's constantly the same ask over and over.
Guys, I have got a question. When you, and maybe this is more for Scott or maybe more for Cornelius, I don't know. But my question is this, is when you sit down with someone who looks like they could be part of your ecosystem, right? They want to be a contributor. They want to help out. But what do you find that they don't know about Feeding America? I mean, where are they like, where do you have to educate them about what you do as an organization, and where are the big, like, oh my God, when you start talking to them, they go, oh, I didn't know you guys did that. Oh, you guys do that?
I think
Oh,
Jess has this answer right, locked and loaded.
My experience is that the number one thing is the difference between food bank and food pantry.
Talk about it. Talk about that. Yeah.
So food bank, think about a bike with the bike hub and the spokes.
Yep.
So food bank, we're the logistics experts. We get groceries in by the bulk. It's like how you and your family go to Costco, but times 100. And so we are the transportation, the cold storage, the quality control experts. And we take all of that stress out from pantries, who are your more individual neighborhood associations. A lot of times they're affiliated with churches, a lot of times schools.
Interesting.
And so the pantries are the folks that really have that more direct relationship with clients, can provide, oh, I know your family. I know you've got 3 kids at home. Let me make sure that you're getting this much. I know your son doesn't eat asparagus, so I'm going to make sure you get broccoli, whatever. So even though we work directly with those pantries and we have our relationships with clients, we really handle the logistics side of it, which especially, I guess, in the last year or 2 years, pandemic time is still like this for me. But when we talk about inflation and supply chain, that's the stuff where we handle that so that pantries don't have to. They just focus on serving people, whether that's a box of groceries, whether that's a hot meal, whether that's a backpack of school supplies. And we do that, the fundraising, the logistics, the inventory supplying, we take care of that. And so the benefit of supporting Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin versus your neighborhood pantry, I mean, we all play for the same team, but the dollar here, we are able to stretch it that much further and provide assistance all over the state. And really spread out that good. But I feel like, and I didn't know the difference before I started either, but I think that's a big, there's so many layers to this field and the need, and there's so many different causes of systemic hunger. There's really a lot to get into. So I think a lot of people start with that really great intention of, I want to get involved. And then our job is to kind of help peel back the layers and say, like, well, what's the best fit for you?
Right.
Where do your passions really lie?
That's so true. It's like there's food out there. The trick is supply chain and logistics. I would say so much of what we do is we know that food is here and how do we get it to people. And that is like what we spend a shocking amount of time on supply chain and logistics because the food's actually kind of easy.
Well, and
Wow.
we're in Wisconsin. We are a farm state. We produce food for the whole country, sometimes for other countries. So it's it's not that we don't have enough food in Wisconsin. It's that we don't have the right access to food for some places, for some communities.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's really our expertise, is being that logistics supply chain expert.
I would just add, it's about what I've learned. I mean, I didn't know till I really got here, and I feel like I learned something new every week. It's about, we provide opportunities. So along that, logistics thing, we're handling everything. We're giving people opportunity to go out there and serve their community, right? I think the misconception that I have in my conversations is a lot of people just think, oh, yeah, it's a food drive. There's a box and we're going to give you that old can of food.
Yeah.
It's the SpaghettiOs without the hot dogs in them that you didn't eat when you were a kid. That's great. I'm going to take that, but there's so much more than that. What we do is we'll take that and we'll put it where it's supposed to be. But we have plans that are set up for people with food allergies, dietary restrictions, senior citizens, veterans, as he mentioned, kids in the summer. We have this whole I mentioned this Farm Link program earlier, where we buy plots of lands from farmers so that they know that they have money coming in, but we have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. When I start throwing out these tidbits and having conversations, corporations go, oh, wow, I didn't know you did all that.
Yeah.
Right?
It's
No one
pretty
knows that.
sophisticated,
It's
actually.
pretty,
People
like,
don't
I'm
realize
still
that.
learning stuff. I'm like, wow, we're like, not just the hub, there's all these little spokes coming off the hub where it's like a 30-legged spider or something like that. I don't know if that's really a term, but I didn't realize that.
It is now.
Every
Yeah.
week.
Trademark it.
I feel like I learned something new that we're doing. Like this Farm Link education we got today really enlightened me a lot, where now my wheels are spinning, like, oh, I've missed some people I need to be talking to. So
You know what?
Thing
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was what I've seen, like, on social media, what I've heard when I talking to Cornelius, when I attended the event, I've been observing community is a word that comes up a lot. And Pat, I'm referencing this too. It reminds me a little bit. Sendix, there's some parallels with Sendix. When we had Ted Balsheri on, we were talking about the Sendix story. I mean, let's be honest, we were talking about their business and marketing, but community. If there's ever an entity in that industry that's about community, Sendix. And Ted really spelled that out loud and clear. When I look at Feeding America, Eastern Wisconsin, I'm hearing community, and it's like doing good in the community, and just it's a big part of who you are and what you stand for. And to me, that's something that's been reinforced a few times, and things that I'm seeing on social media, that I'm hearing from you, and things like that.
Shout out to former board chair Ted Balsheri for Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, and
He's awesome.
Right now at Sendix, you can give it the register to support us through October, and you'll get back a little popper for your kid.
right.
So we have a give-get proposition on that end as well.
That's
So you want to
awesome.
talk about crossing demos? Think about the whole Sendix campaign, which you've seen before. They ask us three, and we're kind of in the same demo, but we're not, right? We're male, female, different ages. They ask us to round up. What the brilliant thing about it is there's little poppers that I had no idea what they are. So we're influencing children to tell their parents to buy this, and that's going to help Feeding America. That's genius in my mind. It's almost up to, right?
Kids are in charge.
For sure.
They're going to buy those. Yeah. Sorry.
No,
that's very
that's
cool.
it. When I saw that, I'm like, this is brilliant. This is marketing 101. How do you influence people? Back in radio, it was, women ran the household, but that's not the way it was looked at. But there was a lot of marketing campaigns I probably worked on that focused women that had children ages 10 to 12. How do you talk to them? Because they're really making the buying decision. And this is absolutely it, right? Attract the kid. Yeah, mom, I got to have this. Okay.
Yeah. The demo for those poppers is 5-year-old kids. And it seems to be doing well for us.
Yeah. Sorry,
That's
I went
pretty-
off tangent, but
No, that's pretty cool.
Great
That's cool that
marketing.
Sendix is tied into that. We kudos to them. We'll plug them as well. They're a former guest, and they're doing a lot of good things. From in terms of what you have going on, talk to us if you could, as we kind of wind down here a little bit. What programs, what do you guys want to plug? What's going on there that we should know about, that listeners should be aware of, that's pretty exciting, that Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin has their paw prints on and is coming forward? Share with us what you have going on and plug away, please.
That could be a whole second podcast if you want to do a part two. Yeah.
The real quick rundown, like Cornelius mentioned, FarmLink is a program. I was saying earlier, it's the most Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin program that Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin offers. And it is us directly contracting farmers to grow produce that we distribute at pantries. Farmers get a rate that is comparable, if not better, than what they receive retail and wholesale.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the majority of the farmers are organic. So we're really promoting all of our values through one program. We do a tribal elder box distribution program, like we mentioned, that has foods focused just for culturally relevant preferences of the Native American population in our counties that we serve. Diabetic friendly program, same thing, where it's food that is quality controlled to be safe and preferred by healthcare professionals and is safe for people with diabetes. We have a whole slew of programs and lots of different information about all the different ways that we serve on our website, feedingamericawi.org. And that way you can get like more of an in-depth of all the different ways that we're doing. But as the events manager, I really want to plug a super unique event that we have coming up in November. It's called Feed Your Soul.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a live art performance event. You can get more information at fysmke.com, but it's going to be all sculptors, painters, tattoo artists, contortionists, every type of art that you could be possibly interested in. And all the benefits of that event go back to Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin.
Fire.
Fire.
There's a shocking amount of fire.
There's a lot
at
of
this
fire.
event.
A wonderful committee of volunteers making that happen. And so a beautiful collaboration of artists and all the people that make Milwaukee beautiful with doing some good and providing meals out of it. So definitely check that out. And the biggest thing, year round, I mean, especially as we're getting into the holidays, but really year round, we're looking for volunteers in our warehouse. We need you to come out and help us go through this food, quality control it, pack it up, help get it on the trucks. That's how we operate. And like you're talking about, our relationship with community is everything. I mean, we are the organization that kind of manages it, but without volunteers, without donors, without supporters, without pantries, none of this happens. And we're in a worse off place. So you can get that information. You can sign up right online to volunteer, come to the warehouse. You could do that in Milwaukee or Appleton, feedingamericawi.org.
As far as ways that people can get involved, as far as like the campaigns that we were discussing earlier, like I mentioned, we just finished our Healthy Kids, Healthy Summer campaign in August, where the face of that was AJ Dillon from the Packers. You know, loved seeing the touchdown in game 1. We're not going to talk about the fumble in game 2 because we know he'll come back around, and he is an awesome guy. We've been able to meet his family. It's fantastic. We're right now in September in Hunger Action Month. The face of that is DJ Shauna, the DJ for the Bucks, and she's DJ'd at All-Star games and Summerfest. And
She's in the bubble.
She was in the bubble. Yeah.
Like an NBA regular DJ around. Yeah.
And she's just like a great community leader. And she actually really wanted to work with us because of what we were doing for our mission. And then in September, we're working with the USA Today papers, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, and all of them in our footprint for something called Stock the Shelves, where you'll see a lot of real human interest stories over the course of October, asking people to help support, you know, the pantries and the farmers and the people that we support. And then in November, December, we have Food for the Holidays, which is sponsored by Pick and Save. And the face of that, by the time this comes out, I think we can say is going to be the Tauschers, Mark and Sarah Tauscher.
Wow.
So their family is going to invite other families to be a part of what we're doing and asking people to help put food on a table for holidays. And during that, we have Feed Your Soul, which is the first Friday of November. We do Stuff the Bus with 99 WMYX with Elizabeth and Radar. And then because you'd mentioned it earlier, in early January through February, we're doing the PB&J Challenge with our new friend Bobby Portis, who will be the face of that. So we have Bobby Portis Jr., BPJ, trying to raise PBJ. for the city of Milwaukee as well. And he was just recently here because he wanted to get to know a lot of the pantry folks and our stakeholders and our staff. And it was his idea that he wanted to kind of get to know us if he was going to work with us. Couldn't ask for a more down-to-earth, invested,
Absolutely.
mission-driven
humble guy.
person, and
Awesome.
great representative, great person to work with. And so to the marketing, those are ways that we're trying to differentiate ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a shame you guys have nothing going on.
Yeah, we all have like 130,
That's awesome.
30% of our plate filled.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic, and I'm glad you were able to, we'll obviously do our part to plug that too, but that's fantastic. Final words, I guess. I'm gonna leave it. You kind of said it well, so I don't know how you can top it, but is there a question you wish we would have asked you? That's my final question. Is there a question that you're like, gee, I wish Pat McGovern would have asked that question? He did, either that or final words,
I'm gonna throw it out. I'm gonna throw it out there.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really important to us is to make sure that everybody knows that we're a local food bank. We're a part of the Feeding America Network. There are 200 food banks in the Feeding America Network across the country, which covers every single county in the United States. Because our name has the word Feeding America in it, a lot of people get confused. They think of us as kind of, we're a national organization. We're just like the outpost that they planted here, kind of similar to a lot of national organizations. Instead, it's a network, and we choose to be a member. So we actually pay a program fee to be a part of it, and we could choose to go solo if we wanted to. And so, although we have to adhere to some very basic policies and procedures that are appropriate for us to follow as a food bank anyway, we choose to be a part of it because then we have the support of an entire nationwide series of food banks and in the overall national organization. But we also get to be boots on the ground local. All of our decision making is made locally. Our board of directors is local. We're not directed to do anything specifically by anybody national. And so we know our area, and they trust us to be able to serve our folks. And so one of the things that people do get confused about is that we're not local, which is absolutely not true. We're the biggest food bank in the state, and we're 100% local.
That's awesome. Thank you for I think that's a very good final word. So on that note, we're gonna put a bow on this interview with Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. This has been another episode of Over a Pint. Scott, Jessecca, Cornelius, it was a pleasure to have
Cheers,
you
guys.
all on the show. Thank you for sharing some time, and Shane, thank you for sharing more of your story with us. Get involved, listeners. Great organization. Till next time, cheers.
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 Thank you so much for having
Thanks
us
a
on.
lot.